Okey-dokey.
I can see you, Tim.
Hey. Good
Hello.
to see you.
Hello.
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 Okay, we should be live now. For
Okay.
those of you that are just tuning in, thank you for joining us for this really special celebration for Veterans Day to honor a wonderful World War II veteran. We're going to take just a moment here just to allow for some late trailers to come on, or anybody who may be having a technological glitch. We all know that stuff happens. So, so just sit tight for a moment, and we'll be with you to start our presentation.
Oh, now I see myself.
We get on now?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, all right.
I guess you always had to wait until after the clock.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Okay, we are live, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight for this really special presentation. We are so happy to have with us a special guest to honor today for Veterans Day, Sergeant Joe Fitzwater. And just before we introduce Joe, I'd like to tell you just a few things to get us started. So first of all, happy Veterans Day, happy Wednesday. I hope everyone is having a good week so far as we muster through the next phase of the world of COVID-19 and all of the craziness in this world. It is so nice to be able to stop and take a moment to appreciate the important things in life, and one of those being our veterans and those that have sacrificed for our country and for our freedom. So thank you for being here. I am Shannon Eggleston. I am the founder and executive director of I Imagine. We are a nonprofit based out of Covington, Kentucky, and we provide after-school programs for kids to learn how to be great photographers, but also how to find their souls and tell their stories through photographs. So we really get to know our kids well through their pictures, and they really show us, they inspire us every day with their photographs. So for all of the students that are with us today, families, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being here. Also anyone who's in the audience today who is a veteran, we especially thank you for being here with us. And we, this is for all of you. I would like to tell you, for those of you that may not be familiar with I Imagine, I would like to take just a moment and give you a short.
You can unplug the phone. Right underneath it. Unplug it.
I'm going to share my screen. A short video to show you who we are and what we do. Bear with me just a second.
That can tell our story.
Start this over.
I imagine we are photographers. We are soul seekers that can tell our stories through photographs. And we're confident because we're unique and because we're part of something.
The cord's underneath it, honey. Just unplug them.
Behind the lens, I feel like I could really express myself in different ways than other people could. And photography club really helps me do that.
I feel like I can express myself and really show my colors.
Just squeeze the plug in and pull it out.
When I'm behind the camera, I feel inspired because I feel that my pictures are my words.
When I'm behind the lens, I feel like I'm the only person in the world taking that picture. When I'm behind the lens, I feel very creative because nobody else could probably take the picture I had taken. And it was just so rare to have that one picture.
Okay, so that is I Imagine. I would like to get back to where I was. Bear with me. This is everything I'm doing right now is for the first time today. I'm going to be very candid. I know Zoom, but going back and forth streaming live is new. So we're all a work in progress, right? So I am right here. Okay. Okay, so quickly, I'd like to tell you that just a few weeks ago, I met Sergeant Fitzwater. I was at my daughter's cross-country meet, and I saw this gentleman watching, cheering on some runners, and I thought he had a veteran's hat on, and I always make a point to thank our vets when I see them. And so I approached Sergeant Fitzwater and thanked him for his service, and we started a short and tender conversation, and I learned quickly that he was a World War II vet and also a photographer for, he did aerial topography photography for during World War II as a reconnaissance and intelligence photographer. So I thought this was the most amazing opportunity and asked him if he'd be interested in celebrating Veterans Day with us. And here we are. That was just a few weeks ago. So we're so happy to have Joe with us today. Veterans Day has always been super important to me. Sorry, when I was a little girl, my grandfather would joke around with me and tell me that he had 5 belly buttons. And I always thought he had 5 belly buttons. When I was a kid, I thought that was really cool. And I used to brag to my friends that my grandfather has more belly buttons than yours. And it wasn't till I was an adult that I learned that he actually was shot in the Battle of the Bulge at the end of World War II, and almost lost his life. Thankfully, he didn't, and I'm here to talk about it. But it really, from that moment on, I really gained a new appreciation, not only for him, but for others who have served and made those sacrifices. Whether you were on the ground or in the air, whatever it was, by signing up and by saying yes, you put your life on the line for us every day. I've never stopped being thankful, and surely tonight will continue. So without further ado, I am so excited to introduce to you Sergeant Joe Fitzwater. Let's see here. I think I have. There we go. Sorry, I had you on mute. That wasn't a very graceful introduction. But Sergeant Fitzwater, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we have some questions for you and some things that we'd like to go through. I'd like to start with your early, well, actually, before you started in the service. You know what? Actually, let me take one step back. Everything okay on your end?
Yeah, we had to get rid of the unmute insignia on the screen.
Oh, okay. Okay, perfect. Before we start, I have something special that I'd like to share with you so that you can see from our point of view how important you are to us and how much our students at I Imagine and at our schools have been thinking about you and in anticipation for this evening. So I've put together a little video, and I'm again gonna roughly navigate here through sharing my screen.
Okay, and tell me, what is your name?
Ella?
Ella, thanks for being with us. What would you like to say to Sergeant Fitzwater?
Well, I'm really thankful. Like, not everyone just takes time out of their lives to fight for our country, and it's just really admirable. And I just want to thank you and everyone else. Thank you, Sergeant Fitzwater. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Sergeant Fitzwater, for your service. I would like to say thank you for serving our country.
Okay, Alexis, and why are you thankful for our veterans?
I'm thankful for our veterans because we're not ruled by under someone else from a different country.
Why are our veterans important to you?
I think they're important because they helped us get free and helped us to where we are now.
And why are you thankful for our veterans?
Because if there were no veterans, then we wouldn't be free in this country.
And in your
I can't understand those voices at all.
how do you feel like you have freedom?
It's like not being controlled or ruled by anybody else. Like knowing that you can do what you want without like getting told what to do.
Perfect. Do your parents ever tell you what to do?
Well, yeah, but it's different.
Why are you thankful for our veterans?
They risked their lives, and some died to save our country.
And is there any way in your day-to-day life that you feel like you feel freedom?
I can go outside and play.
Does it feel like in your world, what does freedom look like to you?
Freedom is like when my mom trusts me to be at home alone, or trusts me to like go out and play without her or something in our neighborhood. I can go to the store without being harassed.
Why are you thankful for our veterans?
I am thankful for our veterans because they help protect our country and shape how our country is, and our country wouldn't be complete without them. Thank you for your service, Sergeant Fitzwater.
Okay, can you hear me, Joe?
Yes, I can.
Okay, just want to test and make sure that you're with us. Okay, so that's us, and that's how much we appreciate you and appreciate you being here with us tonight. So I'd like to start this evening with just going through a bit of brief history. Hang on here. Excuse me. Oh, I need to do this. Okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, there we are. Can you see me?
No, I can see me, but I can't see you.
Okay. All right. I think we're all here.
I'm in on the big picture and the little picture.
Okay. Well, we want you on the big picture because you're way more important tonight. Okay. So let's start with one of the things that I thought was most interesting when I first talked to you, Joe, was you told me that before you entered into the military, before there was a World War II, you as a high school student were already interested in photography. So can you tell us a little bit about what you did, what high school you went to and what you did as a photographer for your high school?
I was with I graduated from the Milford High School in Milford, Ohio. We're just a little community, a little bit east of Cincinnati. And the teacher that I had in my industrial arts class, I mentioned photography to him. I don't know why I had the bug, and he said, well, we don't have a dark room. He said, would you like to build one? And I said, well, yes, if I can. So he arranged for us to get the supplies, and I built the dark room. I painted the inside of it black, of course, and put the cloth up so that we could enter, go in and out. And you have to have the tunnels, so to speak, as you go through, so the light doesn't bend. So if it hit a black wall with no reflection, so you could go in and out as long as we weren't in the real process of developing the film. And so with his help and guidance, I had a photo lab there, and we had a printer, and that was my beginning of photography. And then from that, I became the photographic editor of our 1942 school graduation book, and it was called The Drawfilm. And Dorflam is a strange name, but it's Milford spelled backwards.
So when you
So-
say you're talking about your school's yearbook, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So to our middle schoolers, you all know what the yearbook is. So now when you get your next yearbook or look back on some of your older ones, you'll have a new appreciation and you can remember Sergeant Fitzwater. And really that's where his love for photography started, was with his high school and with the yearbook. So I thought that was cool. Just to give you a little bit more perspective on what life was like when Sergeant Fitzwater was a middle schooler, or he told us there was no such thing as middle school when he was of the age. And so I asked him, when you were around age 15, 14, 13, what kind of car did your parents drive?
My dad he was a milkman. We called him a milkman. He delivered house-to-house milk for Cedar Hill Farms, a dairy that no one hears of anymore because it's been out of business for years and years and years. But he was a home delivery of milk, and he had to have a truck. So that truck was our main form of transportation.
So kids, the next time you feel like awkward because you're in your parents' car, just remember, it could have been a milk truck.
Yeah, there was one seat in it. The seat was for the driver. Everybody else sat on the floor or the best way they could be comfortable. And let me tell you, you wanted to hang on going around the bends because you were subject to sliding around on the inside of it.
So Sergeant Fitzwater, what you're saying is there were no seatbelts.
Oh,
in your
no.
vehicle.
Absolutely not. No electric windows. And the interior smelled like spoiled milk as a rule. So.
Oh my gosh. Oh, okay. And also tell us a little bit about what was your favorite kind of music you listened to during those early years?
My favorite what, please?
Music.
Oh, music. Well, in my earlier years in school and stuff, country western was all the rage. And then as I got into high school and got a little bit older and a little more sophisticated, so to speak, the big band era was starting. And so it was real cool to be able to talk about the big band era and sing some of the songs. And this goes way back for you young people. You probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but that was big bands and that was huge orchestras that would play music that we enjoyed.
Well, luckily I have a photograph right here of one of your favorite
that's Benny
musicians
Goodman.
from that age. And
I
this
mean,
is, who is this?
Yeah, that's Benny Goodman.
Benny Goodman. Okay. I thought it was Glenn Miller.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I stand corrected.
Okay.
That is
all right.
Glenn Miller.
So
He was
kids,
lost.
I don't know when you're on Spotify surfing music, I don't know the last time you saw a guy in a suit with the trombone. Maybe we can say the musical times have changed just a little bit.
He was
Okay.
he was a great musician and a great patriot, and he volunteered in the service in the music part of entertainment, and he was lost between New England and Europe. They going across the strait. They never found any trace of him. His plane was shot down, and they have no record. Never found any trace of him.
Wow. And you said that was during World War II. Is that correct?
Yes, it was. Yes,
yeah,
it was.
Yeah. Okay. A few things that I found interesting also were during that time period, you mentioned that you didn't have a social security number. You weren't born.
Yes.
When you were born, you didn't get a social security number like Americans now when babies are born.
That is correct. I didn't get a social security number until I applied when I started working. And I started working for a company when I was 16. And at that time, I got my social security number.
Wow. So that's amazing. Tell us,
Yes.
too, what was your first job you had as a teenager?
Well, I had so many different jobs. I started out as a young man working in the fields and for a farmer because I lived in the country. We were not farmers, but our neighbors were. And I worked for them for a nickel an hour. And then when the threshing would come along, that's when they were harvesting their crops of the wheat and the rye and the oats, I would get 10 cents an hour and a free meal every day. So that was a great time of the year. And then from there, I went into caddying. I started caddying for the elite golfers who could afford to pay me 35 cents for carrying their bag for 18 holes.
Wow, 35 cents. Now, I'm not a golfer, but could you take a guess what it would cost to have someone caddy for you today, 18 holes?
$40.
Whoa, man. If this whole teaching thing doesn't work out, maybe I'll be a caddy.
But then I got through my father, I got to work in a dairy bar. It was called the Cedar Hill Farms Dairy Bar in Mariemont, Ohio. And I got into the big time there. I started making $0.25 an hour. If I worked 40 hours a week, I was making $10. And I was one of the elite in our school as far as having pocket change is concerned.
Wow. When you say $10, do you mean an hour?
I mean, a week.
Wow. So kids, listen to that. Nowadays, that's around the wage that you'd make in an hour if you were bagging groceries at Kroger or something of that nature. So
yes, but with that $10 a week, I was able to purchase a car of my own, and I was able to pay for my class picture, my class ring, and the suit that I graduated in. So
wow.
I was quite wealthy for a young man at that time.
Wow. And you were really taking care of yourself, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were not fortunate enough to have a bunch of money laying around to spend as we saw fit. Everything was pretty close to the belt at that time.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about when you got a little bit older. We were approaching a world war, a second world war.
Yes, I can remember in my senior year in this Monday after the bombing of Pearl Harbor on December the 7th in 1941, the Monday following, that was a Sunday. And the Monday, then it was announced in school, and President Roosevelt gave the speech on his declaration of war against the Empire of Japan. And that was a call to arms, so to speak. Patriotism was extremely high in my school system. I think it was all over, not just my school system. A really side effect, I'll make it quick. I had a very good friend by the name of Bob, and he had a cousin by the name of Loretta. And one day they were at school, and the next day they weren't. And I said, "What happened to Bob?" "Oh, we don't know." I said, "No, what happened to Bob?" I said, "Where is he? Where's Loretta?" Well, they refused because of their religious beliefs to pledge allegiance to the flag, and they were immediately kicked out of school. No questions, no trials, no nothing. That wouldn't work today, but it did work then, and I'm very sorry to say that was the nature of the situation at that time.
So the moral of the story is that's how seriously your school took the importance of recognizing patriotism and to supporting our country and being united.
Absolutely, flag and country came number one. That was the first thing that we thought of, and all the young men in my age bracket wanted to be heroes. We all wanted to get the ribbons and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of the young men quit school and joined. I did not do that.
Wow. And so one of the questions that our students have for you is, when you felt like you were going to go to war, were you afraid?
No.
No.
I don't think I was ever afraid in my life until the day that I decided to quit flying. And that day I had a fear of survival, and that took a long time, but
And
I was never afraid of anything.
Years later.
I'm surprised I lived as long as I did. I probably should have been more cautious.
Well, I think, I think that in some regards we can all say that, but you definitely have. I wish we could go all night talking about the experiences that you're referring to. However, we only have a short amount of time. But with that said, as we move forward and get into the photography component of the evening and how you used photography to protect our country and to keep us free, I would like to tell all of our guests tonight, if you go back to our website under Contact Us, you can contact me directly through email. If you have more questions for Sergeant Fitzwater, he and I spoke briefly today about doing a part 2 of this, and we can do it perhaps in more of an intimate, having everyone together in a private Zoom room where we can do more candid Q&A. So if you're interested in that, please email me from our website, and if there's enough buzz and enough people that want to do it, we'll for sure make that happen. Any chance I have to reconnect with Sergeant Fitzwater, I'm all for it. So thank you for that. Okay, so let's fast forward. You said you did not sign up for the war right away. What were you doing up until the time that you did enter World War II and join the military?
I was working for the Pennsylvania Railroad in the repair yard, they called it, in Cincinnati, Ohio. That was the railway was our main form of transportation at that time, and it was necessary to keep the trains running. And so, for the period of time that I was waiting to become part of the military, why I worked the Pennsylvania Railroad.
Okay, and then you finally took the call and
I tried to enlist, and I was turned back for various reasons. And then when I was drafted, that was on March 1st in 1943.
Okay, so you were drafted in 1943. One thing that I thought was interesting that I want all of our kids to know is that if you ever feel down on yourself because you feel small, physically small, and as middle schoolers, kids grow at all different rates, and some are big and some are small. What was one of the times when you were originally turned away? Why was that?
Well, I tried to join the Coast Guard, and they had all the recruits they needed. I tried the Navy. I'm colorblind, so they said. So I went to the Marines, and I was at that time about 5'6". I weighed about 114 pounds, and I asked them if I could join the Marines. They said, "We want men, not boys. Come back when you grow up." So I thought, if that's the rejection I'm going to get, I will stay a civilian until the military decides to come and get me. And so I was drafted under the Selective Service Act.
Yes. Okay. And so once you were drafted, you went to basic training. And from there, you were teaching troops how to.
No, I was supposed to go into the cadet program to become a pilot. That was my ultimate goal anyway. But because of my colorblindness, that never happened. So through the contacts I made while I was waiting to go to cadets, I was able to get myself assigned to Larry Air Force Base in Denver, Colorado, where they had a photography school. They called it basic photography. And that was a part of my sort of formal training as a photographer.
Okay. And so from there, you were then teaching troops that were going in the air.
I was teaching bombardier cadets. I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Yes, the cadets. We were training cadets to be bombardiers, and they had to take pictures of their how close their dummy bombs were hitting the target. So I would teach the cadets how to use the cameras at that time for the bomb spotting.
And then from there, you finally were called to fly, but not actually fly.
I had never flown, and that was one of my big desires. I wanted to be on the air crew some way. If I couldn't be a cadet, at least I wanted to be a part of the air crew. But I had never flown, and through my contact with teaching these bombardier cadets how to use the cameras while they were flying, I was able to get a word in about how badly I wanted to fly. And so one day, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know I was going to fly that afternoon. For my lunch, I had a chocolate milkshake and a piece of cherry pie.
Okay.
And I bought it while I was at the PX.
Kids, stop for a minute. Think about that. Cherry pie and a milkshake is what he had to eat and drink. Okay, go on, Sergeant.
And so while I was at the PX, I bought a new cap. And this, I'm going to show you this. This will give you some idea of what the cap looked like. And if you open it up, you can see it makes a bit of a container, let's call it. So at any rate, when I got on the plane, why we took off when I was thrilled to death. And as we were flying and making some lazy 8 turns, they called them, I think the pilot was trying to not coordinate his turns as well as he should. And my stomach started rolling around and I got sick. And I said to the pilot, I said, I need to vomit. I said, where can I go? He says, use your hat. I said, what? He said, use your hat. And he said, turn it inside out like I just showed. I had just bought that hat at the PX. And I paid about 1/3 of my month's salary for it. I was really proud of it. And so consequently, I used that hat as a catch-all. And then I said, now what do I do with it? He said, I'll open the bomb bay doors and you drop it out. So we did that. And then when we landed, he inspected the plane, and it seemed that all of the residue from my sickness didn't get completely out of the plane. So he said, get a bucket and some soap and water and scrub the plane down. So that was my first experience of flying, and also my first experience in cleaning up after myself from getting air sick. I was air sick the first 11 times I flew, and finally I overcame that, and I ended up flying over 6,000 hours as a member of the Air Force.
So as a member, let that sink in, kids. In his time in the Air Force, he was in the air for 6,000 hours.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's
Yes,
a long time.
I was
You
flying
have no choice.
A lot of times I was flying 100 or more hours a month. Now you think about that. That is a lot of hours. That's almost 4 hours every day.
And I bet you paid closer attention to what you ate before you went up in the air.
I never had any, once I got over the air sickness, I never had a problem again.
Good.
It was over. I was over with it. It was finished.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that fun fact about Sergeant Fitzwater. Okay, so I have a short video that I want to show just so our kids, and really for anybody, can get, this is not an exact depiction of what Sergeant Fitzwater did from the air, but it will give you a pretty good idea of what it looked like a day in the life as an aerial reconnaissance photographer capturing topography. And so I'm going to really quickly switch to share my screen one more time, see if I can get any better at this.
Yeah.
All right, in this, here we go.
B-25s are used as photo.
Whoopsies.
You have to understand one thing.
What happened here? Hopefully.
About directing. That
this video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional
I may have
films from
lost
around
our
the globe.
video.
Try Mubi free for 30 days at mubi.com/cinematyler.
Okay.
Planes.
Here it is.
P-38s may also fly these missions. Cooperation between Air Force photo squadrons and the ground forces is close. The Air Force not only photographs towns and villages in Jap hands, but also plays an important role in finding barely perceptible trails for advancing troops. In the Burma jungles, the dense foliage and trees averaging 75 feet in height limit the visibility of ground troops to a few yards. The Japs know how to take advantage of the jungle for camouflage, which complicates the job of photo interpretation. After photo reconnaissance has taken the pictures, it will be up to photo intelligence to help assess the value of new targets and determine changes in old targets for the information of combat intelligence and staff officers. En route, the cameraman prepares his equipment.
Looks like I'm losing. Oh, here we go.
His equipment. P-51s are used for cover on this mission. These belong to the 311th Fighter Bomber Group. This is the approach to Michina, photographed by the motion picture camera from south to north at an altitude of 10,000 feet. The Irrawaddy River can be seen to the left. The pilot and co-pilot check the landmarks against the map. Notice the old bomb craters as the plane approaches the camera target. Here are the Michigan Railroad yards and vicinity, photographed from an altitude of 800 feet. After the photographic run is completed, the aerial camera is unloaded and the film carefully packed.
Whoops.
Okay. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what it looked like, a day in the life of Sergeant Fitzwater when he was in the air. Sergeant Fitzwater mentioned that the cameras look a little bit different than what he used.
Yes. Yes, the cameras I used did not have near the long focal plane that did. That was a very deep camera, so to speak. Mine were more compact, and I used two instead of one. I used two to be able to measure the height and depth of the terrain that we were photographing.
So
it was called topography, TOPO, topography. And,
topography, we got it.
Topography, yes, TOPO.
Yes.
And you had to wear glasses also then to read it, but we had to superimpose one of the camera films on the other camera film because they were set at an angle and they both were coordinated, and we took two pictures of the object at the same time.
And so
it gave us the depth.
Yeah, it gives you the depth. It's a similar to the way in which three-dimensional kids for our students, 3D movies. It's
I think with
the composition for a 3D movie's made. And when you go to a 3D movie, you also wear fancy glasses. So we actually
I think they can remember that.
We have a special guest with us, not just Sergeant Fitzwater, but we have another special guest with us, which I will pan to right now. All right, this is Tim Jeffries. He's with us. He's local here in Cincinnati. He's very well known as a great photographer locally. I believe that. You're always your own worst critic, Tim. But Tim's also very well known for his extensive, incredible collection of vintage cameras. He has over 200. Right now, he's actually in his basement. I've been lucky enough to tour his basement and see all of these in the past, and I could have spent days down there. And so what Tim has set up for us is actually a very similar camera to the one that Sergeant Fitzwater was using from his airplane, which was a B-24. And so Tim's going to give us give us a little bit of a background and demonstrate and show us how this camera works. So take it away, Tim.
Okay. What I have here is a Crown Graphic 4x5 camera, very similar to the Speed Graphic that Joe or Sergeant Fitzwater had in World War II. Just to show you what a big beast this thing is. I'm not a small person.
So it's way different than taking pictures with an iPhone, right?
For the kids, no more point and shoot. Way back when, for starters, this is a film holder. The film was 4x5 inches. This holder had 2 sheets of film, so you got 2 pictures before you had to actually change the film holder. The camera's huge. So for starters, you would have to use a light meter to be able to tell the lighting conditions, be able to set the f-stop and shutter speed on the camera. And then on this beast, if you were good enough, you could focus by looking through the pseudo viewfinder, lining up the target. You have to know your distance to the subject. Once you set your f-stop and shutter speed, you have to cock the camera. And then you point back at the subject and fire away.
So your shutter release is on the side, on the right side.
Yeah, the shutter release is on the side.
There.
And then the 2 different ways to use this camera is either by guessing and knowing the distance of the subject, or actually through the back of the camera.
Oh.
Yeah, the back of the camera has a piece of ground glass. When the shutter is open without film in there, you can actually focus on the subject. You close this beast up. This comes off the camera. The film goes back in place of it. Boom, you got a picture. Using this camera today, modern day, it's a good tool for me because it teaches me discipline. You have to slow down, you have to focus, you have to think about what you're taking, with what subject matter you're going to take with the camera, take all the settings, and then you take a picture. Recently, I went down to the Roebling Bridge. Took me 10 minutes to set up and get 2 pictures. On the phone, you could have taken hundreds of pictures. So again, the beauty of using a camera like this, modern day, is you slow down, you think about what you're doing, you focus, you set your conditions, boom. So I appreciate Sergeant Fitzwater's service in World War II, the fact that he had to use this camera and fire away and get pictures on the ground of what reconnaissance was doing. That's amazing compared to how easy it is today.
And one thing to point out too, with all of the talk that all of the things you're describing with exposure, the things that you had to set and measure and evaluate on that camera, in addition to that, Sergeant Fitzwater had to pay attention to the coordinates that the pilots were navigating to make sure they were in the right location, but also the speed of the aircraft and the height that the plane was off the ground also were really, really important pieces of information for them to know. So this was truly a science more than an art form, at least for the context that we're talking about Sergeant Fitzwater. And it gives me, I hope the kids too, such an incredible appreciation for what you had to know and what you had to balance in such a short amount of time to get the pictures that we needed to, again, keep us safe and keep us free.
Right.
Okay, so
exactly how fast he had to think and act to get the proper pictures for what he was doing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, what else do you have for us, Tim? Get ready,
Well,
kids. You're gonna love this.
The kids will get a kick out of this. When this camera's used, you've seen probably semi-modern day films of Muhammad Ali fighting ringside. The photographers had a camera like this with this kind of flash on it. The cool thing that the kids will get a kick out of for this, back in 1975, when George Lucas and Steven Spielberg decided to do Star Wars. I put the number, put it out here. The handle for this flash, next time you watch Star Wars, this handle from the flash was what was used for the lightsabers in the movie.
For Luke Skywalker. Again, every time I think Luke Skywalker, I think speed graphic.
Speed graphic. The flash, boom. Oh, where'd it go?
All right. Well, thank you so much for that awesome demonstration, Tim.
Oh, you're welcome.
We hope that once COVID's over, we can have a time where you and Sergeant Fitzwater can be in person with our kids to show us more cool old camera stuff. So
That'd be, yeah, I look forward to that.
Yeah, well, thank you again for showing that to us. I'm going to pan back now to Sergeant Fitzwater.
Oh, he looks kind of pale there. Oh. There we go.
Okay. Okay. Let me get back to my stuff here. Okay, so that was what it looked like for you during World War II. And in the photographs you were taking were used more for mapping to help pilots or aircraft to navigate, to know where to go. Is that correct?
Yes, there were many areas I was in the Asiatic Pacific, and there were many areas there that had never been mapped properly or photographed. And our job there was on Borneo and Mindanao and the Philippine Islands. I was stationed on Palawan, which is a island in the Philippines. It's 400 miles south of Manila. And we flew in the remote areas that had never been mapped before. And our job was to get those where they would be understood more. More of an understanding of what the terrain was.
Okay. And so this has gone so fast. I could soak in every minute of everything that you say. And we are already at 6:45. So let's just take a brief moment and talk about, you also served in the Korean War.
Yes, I did.
And then you finished, remained in the Air Force after the Korean War until you retired from the Air Force. Is that
Well,
correct?
I did not retire. No, that's wrong. I left the Air Force. I re-enlisted after World War II because I got out late. Since I was late getting in the service, I got out late, and the college opportunities were not available. They were all filled. And so I re-enlisted, and I went back. And when I went back in, I went into the motion picture part of the Air Force then. And I was stationed at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, which is near Fort Walton, which I'm sure most of the kids would be familiar with.
Or maybe Destin, in that area?
And Destin, yes.
Yeah, lots of kids go to Destin Beach now for vacation. So when you say motion picture, you mean you were taking video, like video, the way that, kids, TikTok, think TikTok.
Well, I was taking motion pictures with 16 and 35 millimeter cameras.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they understand what that is or not, but
they probably don't.
We had rolls of 100-foot spools of rolls of film up for the handheld cameras that we had to use in the aircraft. We
will hopefully be able to get into film and motion pictures at some point in the near future. With COVID, we've gotten such a late start on everything. So the kids are really just digging into the fundamentals of exposure right now on still cameras, all digital.
Okay.
So
yes.
So I have one question that a student asked that I would love to kind of use as a closing for tonight. And that question is, what is, from your perspective and through your lens, what is a way that kids now could, what could we do to help you to understand how much we appreciate you? Or what is it that you see happening with kids today that makes you feel appreciative?
I think
kind of a loaded question.
It's very simple. I think obeying the law and looking out for your fellow man, if you do those two things and help out when you can, those are the important things. That is what our country is based on. And if we help each other when it's necessary, if you see someone in need, try to help them, and always obey the law. It's not always easy, but it's always the proper thing to do.
Oh, those are just wonderful words of wisdom. And so kids, remember that, of course, the obeying the law, but helping each other, seeing each other as an opportunity to be kind and to lend a hand rather than be hurtful and unkind.
Yes, it was much more critical during the war that we have each other's back. Your life depended on your fellow man on your aircraft. Like there was 10 men on my aircraft crew. We were in B-24s, and each one of us had a job to do, and it was our responsibility to do it, to ensure our mission and our safety would be complete.
Awesome. Well, Sergeant Fitzwater, we can't thank you enough for your time tonight in sharing your experience and sharing your knowledge with us. You are a walking history book, and we value you, and we value everything that you've done for us so much. I hope that we've done at least a fair job of showing you how our appreciation for you. And we hope that we can do this again in the near future. So thank you so much for being with us.
You're certainly welcome, and thank you for this opportunity.
Sure. And for all of you that are still with us, remember, if you have further questions, comments, anything regarding tonight's presentation, please get onto our website, and under Contact Us, you'll find my email. You can also reach out through social media, and please let me know, and we'd be happy to answer more questions you might have, or like I said, set up another Q&A session. We call it more of a Q&A. So again, thank you everyone for your time, and happy Veterans Day. Have a good evening.
Good night.